Hi everybody. On Easter Monday, my WhatsApp pinged at 4 in the morning. Now that was a little bit early for me to get up, so when I got up at about 8, I read it through, and it was a video of Alice and Harry, Alice my eldest grandchild, and Harry her husband, singing in harmony a beautiful hymn to the background of a Costa Rican sunset. Can you imagine that? And the words were so meaningful. I just wanted to start today by speaking them out. He is my joy, my righteousness and freedom, my steadfast love, my deep and boundless peace. To this I hold, my hope is only Jesus, for my life is wholly bound to his. He is my hope story. In my 20s, I couldn't see what I was hoping for. And it was into this unknown that God came and gave me the certainty of his love. And as I look back, I see that time and time again, God has done this and gone before and continued to give me hope in what he's leading me into. Perhaps I should start at the beginning, where God laid two important foundations in my life. That was my faith and my husband, Ron. In Australia, the custom was to travel overseas, to do a bit of a trip and then come back and settle down, get married. So I did that. I came over on the Orion, worked in London, worked in Paris, and then went home and lived with my parents and had a very busy and very happy social life. But when I was 29, God decided, okay, I need to step in here. Although I was a Sunday school teacher and I worked in an Anglican church, attended all my life, I didn't have any idea of the dimensions of God's love. I was acting it out, but I didn't understand the true dimensions. But when I came back from overseas, I started attending a little group. And they amazed me, they made me excited because they saw that the Bible wasn't just a book of history, it wasn't just a book to read, but it was life. And my life, I started getting really excited about attending these meetings. They suggested to me that I went to a children's camp as a children's counsellor. And these children were from the inner city. And I had no experience at all of what goes on in the inner city. And as I chatted with these children, my heart broke at the sort of lives they were leading. They thought that was absolutely natural that their mum would disappear to have her evening of prostitution or whatever. And, my heart was just really soft. And one night I was sitting in the hall with them on the ground, and this woman was giving her testimony. Now, it might sound strange to you, but I'd never heard testimonies before. And here was this woman who'd been in jail most of her life, in jail a lot of her life. She had a baby in jail, and she was transformed. I was looking at somebody who was beautiful and who was talking about the love of Christ from her very heart. And as I listened to her, I started to shake, and I had to leave the room because I didn't want to upset the children. And I went down onto the beach and I just knelt on the sand, looking at the surf, looking at that moon in the distance and saying, Father, forgive me. I've left you out of all my plans. And from that moment on, God stepped in. That was the first foundation step he wanted to let. And I thought, life was so exciting. Suddenly my social life of dances, tennis matches, barbecues, social outings just didn't have a priority at all. God had the priority. And that was the first thing God wanted to put in place before he could use me. Then I went on to God's next step. I lived 34 miles to the north of Sydney, and in the south there was a little group that used to gather people who were addicted. maybe to alcohol, maybe to drink. I'm sorry, not to drink, maybe to drugs. Um, and they would pray for them in the power of the Holy Spirit that they would be released from this addiction. And I couldn't believe the miracles I saw when the Holy Spirit worked in these people's lives and freed them from the power of addiction. So I would go as often as I possibly could and became quite friends with these people. Then they started working on me instead of the addictions. And they said, Sue, you know, there's a lovely man who's just lost his wife and has 6 children, and you've seen him in conferences preaching and playing the organ. I said, yes. And they said, well, don't you think it'd be nice to give him some company sometimes? I said, me, a baby Christian? No way. And so they didn't get any far with me. Then they tried on Ron, and he said, no, it's okay. I'm going to get my maiden aunt over from Adelaide to look after the children. So they thought, no, we're not giving up. So they contrived to ask us both away on a skiing weekend in the Australian Alps. Somehow, as soon as I saw him, I thought, what's going on here? Anyway, we went skiing and talking. And anyone that knows Ron, we're talking and talking and talking. And a lot of what he shared was about the Aborigines, how he went, when he was 19, he went to up to the faraway mission right in the centre of Australia. He started a school, he learnt their language, he translated the Psalms and a lot of the scriptures. He formed a choir, and he spoke with such passion about these people. And I'd never even met an Aborigine, so for me it was completely amazing. I was like a lapdog listening to all these stories. And then one evening we'd had our meal and we were all in the cabin together, and I was aware that he was going up to people and speaking to them, and they'd disappear. I thought, what's going on here? What's going on? Until finally there was just him and myself in front of the fire, and he said, Sue, I really think that God has told me to ask you to marry me. And I was completely you'll have to give me a little bit of time, I said. And so 2 weeks later I said yes. And you know, it's amazing. And people sort of thought, what, a man 18 years older with 6 children? That's crazy. But it wasn't crazy, because it was God's idea. And that was God working in our lives. It was just incredible. That was, so those two's beginnings, my faith and Ron, we were ready. We were ready then. We were poised. So from then on, we went to Kathmandu. We were there for 3 years, and he used to take them hiking and preaching as he hiked. And then we went to Basingstoke, where he inspired the young people to look outwards, to mission, to look outwards. He took them to Israel, Africa, Europe, Canada, America, and a lot of these young people are now leaders in our church. And he also started the school later in life. That was his inspiration. And then God led us to Winnipeg for a year, and the last wonderful thing God did was he opened the way for us to go back to Ernabella, and we worked there for 8 years. Ron was able to be in contact with the people that he loved so much. I worked for the council, and it was just, I'm rejoicing now today that God so wonderfully saw the hope that lay behind each of these moves. He had something to sow, and he saw the hope, and we moved with him. So thank you, everybody.